Brotherhood. In the heart of Africa during the 1970s, two names echoed with both fear and fascination: Idi Amin Dada of Uganda and Mobutu Sese Seko of Zaire. Two men who ruled their nations with an iron fist, wrapped in flamboyance, brutality, and spectacle. The world knew them as tyrants. Their people knew them as unpredictable masters of life and death. But what the world rarely speaks about is the strange bond between them, a friendship of power, survival, and betrayal. Idi Amin, the towering soldier who once boxed in the Ugandan army, and Mobutu, the sharp dressed general who wore his trademark leopard skin cap, seemed like opposites. Yet they were drawn together by circumstance, ambition, and a shared instinct for survival in a dangerous age. To understand their story is to dive deep into the theater of African politics at the height of the Cold War. It began in 1971. On a January morning, Milton Obote, Uganda's president, was far away in Singapore attending a Commonwealth conference. Back home, his trusted commander, Idi Amin, struck. Tanks rolled through Kampala. Soldiers loyal to Amin seized power. By nightfall, Amin had declared himself the new president of Uganda. The coup shocked Africa. Some leaders condemned it, others hesitated. But one man did not waste time. Mobutu Sese Seko, ruler of Zaire, stepped forward as the very first head of state to recognize Amin's new regime. To the rest of Africa, Amin looked reckless and dangerous. But to Mobutu, he looked like an ally. Mobutu had once done the same thing himself in 1965, overthrowing a fragile civilian government and seizing the presidency. He understood that in moments like these, the new strongman needed recognition, legitimacy, and a brother to lean on. And so, the bond was born. Amin never forgot who stood by him first. Mobutu became not just a supporter, but a protector. From the start, their relationship was wrapped in spectacle. Amin adored grand shows of loyalty. He would host Mobutu in Kampala with parades, feasts, and military displays. Mobutu, in return, treated Amin like a younger brother, sometimes indulging his excesses, sometimes pulling him back from the brink. But Amin was no ordinary ruler. His Uganda descended quickly into chaos. In 1972, he expelled 80,000 Asians, most of them Indians, accusing them of economic sabotage. Their departure destroyed Uganda's economy overnight. Amin declared himself the conqueror of the British Empire after Britain criticized him. He announced himself as Lord of all the beasts of the earth and fishes of the sea. He switched sides between the Soviets, the Americans, and the Arabs whenever it suited him. The world began to see him as a buffoonish dictator, dangerous but ridiculous. Yet behind the jokes, Amin's rule was soaked in blood. Hundreds of thousands of Ugandans vanished in purges. Universities, hospitals, and banks collapsed. Uganda was isolated. And through it all, Mobutu stood by him. Zaire became Amin's lifeline. One story shows this better than any other. It was 1975. At Makerere University in Kampala, a British lecturer named Dennis Hills lived and worked. Hills had traveled widely in Africa. He taught English, wrote books, and sometimes criticized African regimes. But that year, he went too far. In a draft manuscript of his book, The White Pumpkin, he described Idi Amin as a village tyrant and a black Nero. The words were discovered by Amin's security services. Hills was dragged from his home, accused of espionage and sedition. Within days, Amin had sentenced him to death by firing squad. The British government was stunned. Prime Minister Harold Wilson demanded his release. Amin refused. He wanted to show the world that he was no puppet of the West. Uganda prepared for the execution. But then Mobutu intervened. When Amin traveled to Zaire in June 1975, Mobutu took him on a fishing trip. Away from the crowds and the microphones, the Zairean president pressed his Ugandan brother. He urged him to show mercy. He explained that killing a British lecturer would isolate Uganda even further. For more than an hour, he argued, persuaded, cajoled. Finally, Amin relented. The execution was postponed. Mobutu then dispatched his foreign minister as a bridge between London and Kampala. He reassured the British that Amin might be convinced. He reassured Amin that sparing Hills would make him look magnanimous, not weak. The plan worked. In July 1975, British Foreign Secretary James Callaghan flew to Kampala, sat down with Amin, and negotiated Hills's release. When Hills boarded the plane to London, the newspapers called it a diplomatic miracle. But behind the headlines was Mobutu's quiet hand, saving his brother Amin from plunging Uganda into another international crisis. This was not the only time. Time and again, when Amin's reckless actions threatened to consume him, Mobutu was the one who stepped in, smoothing relations, offering refuge, even providing military assistance. Yet their friendship was not built on kindness alone. It was forged in the iron heat of geopolitics. The 1970s was the decade of the Cold War. Africa was not free from its grip. Uganda and Zaire became pawns on the chessboard. Amin played both sides, sometimes flirting with the Soviets, sometimes drawing close to the Arabs, other times begging for American support. Mobutu, meanwhile, was the West's golden boy in Central Africa. Washington and Paris poured billions into Zaire to keep him afloat, because Mobutu promised to be a bulwark against communism. So, in a strange way, Mobutu became Amin's insurance. The West tolerated Amin longer than it might have, partly because of Mobutu's quiet lobbying. Mobutu told them, yes, he is wild, but leave him. He is my brother. We can manage him. But as the years dragged on, Amin's madness grew. He picked fights with Tanzania. He massacred his own people. His soldiers looted and raped. Even Mobutu found it hard to cover for him. In 1978, Amin made his fatal mistake. He invaded Tanzania, claiming the border region of Kagera. What followed was the Uganda-Tanzania War. Tanzanian troops, joined by Ugandan exiles, launched a counterattack. This was when the Mobutu-Amin friendship was tested to its core. Amin pleaded with Mobutu for help, and Mobutu did send aid, but cautiously. He provided some supplies, some weapons, and even tried to broker peace. But it was too late. Amin's army crumbled. In April 1979, Tanzanian troops marched into Kampala. Idi Amin fled, escaping into exile. And where did he flee first? To his brother Mobutu in Zaire. For several weeks, Amin lived under Mobutu's protection. The man who had once declared himself conqueror of empires now found himself humiliated, dependent, broken. Mobutu shielded him before finally arranging his transfer to Libya and then later to Saudi Arabia, where Amin would live out his days in quiet exile. Their friendship did not end with Amin's downfall. Mobutu remained a loyal supporter until the end of his own rule. He visited Amin in exile. He spoke kindly of him in public. He never betrayed him. It was a strange kind of loyalty, a dictator's loyalty. Two men, bound together not by virtue but by necessity. They understood each other. They excused each other's sins. They were both survivors in a world that devoured the weak. Mobutu would rule Zaire until 1997, when he too was overthrown, fleeing into exile. Sick and forgotten. Amin had died 3 years earlier in Saudi Arabia, far from the land he once terrorized. But the story of their friendship remains one of the most unusual alliances in modern African history. Not a friendship of love, not a friendship of ideals, but a friendship of power, calculation, and survival. Mobutu and Amin, brothers in dictatorship, two shadows that haunted Africa, and two men who could never have ruled so long